you, IPA. Thank you, Dr. Rajiv and Dr. Sirish, for giving me this opportunity and also giving me the opportunity to attend yesterday's session. I wanted to build the context before I get into the session. What a wonderful sessions they were, and I really learned a lot, and I wanted to set the context. Today, I'm going to take you through a different journey, dipping into what you already have and how do we actually harness. Next slide, please. The next one. Yeah, just a little brief about the 10th pin. We are a global company, management consulting company. We are a diamond partner recognized by SAP for life sciences industry in 2023 this year. Next slide. We work across the continents, right from Japan to Americas, about 450 consultants. It's a boutique consulting company. We work on technologies across SAP and non-SAP. And we are the only SAP Life Sciences partner. And we have offices in Pune, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. We are the center of excellence for global delivery across multiple customers. Next slide, please. So this is a little glance about the areas of transformation, what we carry out the life sciences companies. As I said, we don't work on any other industry except in life sciences. We work on the SAP transformations, innovations. We already built 3 products along with SAP. We are the business consultants providing the inputs to SAP in building these solutions. Briefly touch upon them. Value chain optimization, digital data and analytics, right from governance to implementations, insights, and process automation. And transformation management with regard to your process optimization, product and project management, quality assurance, and but not the least, the organizational change management required for large transformations. Recently, we also started 10th Pin Solutions. We identify few of the opportunities where the pharma industry is struggling to bridge the gap between their core ERP and many of the peripheral devices and systems which are required to operate smoothly. Next slide, please. I don't spend too much time on this one, but it's like, SAP S/4HANA implementations and specialized areas besides the core vanilla modules like MMSD, FIPP. We also work on some of the most important required solutions for pharma industry and RPA, analytics, integration services, transformations, and process modeling and measurement, migration upgrades. Next slide, please. So this is just a glimpse of some of the clients we work. It's not just 10th Pin working on these clients from outside of India, but many of our people within India are working on these clients. So just a little brief introduction about 10th Pin. Then I move on to the next one, the main core topic for the day. Next slide, please. So setting the context, yesterday we heard about the regulatory requirement, the challenges which the industry is facing, the price regulations, and what is the imperative for us. Next slide, please. The status quo is being disrupted. We are working on complex global supply chains. I'll briefly introduce you to it. The R&D timelines are shrinking. It's just as the design because of the COVID pandemic given us an opportunity and a way out how we can actually shrink, and the industry is looking forward. And they are also becoming complex. Price regulations impacting profitability. How do we actually handle that? And traceability, all of you are aware of the track and trace requirements coming from across the globe. And then the stringent documentation requirement, which was one of the key topics yesterday when we talked about the regulatory requirement, 483s, and many other batch release, etc. Next slide, please. So before we get into each one of the topics, I would like to just put you draw attention in a very simple way most of you understand from the industry. Earlier, we used to talk about manufacturing, logistics, and operation and warehousing. Now, slowly the focus has shifted to R&D. Quality always has been a big focus and regulatory was controlling the industry. Now, looking at this box is expanded in the recent times, not recent times, at least 5 to 6 years prior to the supply chain got extended. The suppliers and the planning function and design functions also started working, integrating with the core manufacturing activity. And also the customers are expanding. Earlier, the profile of the customer used to be large organizations or the distributors. Now, organizations are even looking at a single patient as a customer. So the complexity is increasing. And we are also looking at the contract manufacturing organization, the disruption to the supply chain. The networked supply chain is the mantra of the day. The CMOs, and not only that, it's like organizations are expanding into complex markets, and each market has its own complexity and regulatory requirement. And underlying that is cost, quality, and compliances in each of the geographies where we work with, and at the same time, keeping an eye on market share, patient centricity, and reputation. So this gives you context before we get into the technical activities and what are the opportunities what we have. And next slide, please. Now, changing landscape, I talked about changing landscape. The value chains need to be very agile and resilient. The decision making has to be swift, and it not just a decision making, a pointed decision making, but end-to-end data-driven transparency. And the collaborative integrations, people are working not on one single system, but multiple systems at the same time. Multiple organizations are working on a single system. So integration of the value networks is very, very key in the global supply chain. And then enhanced value chain transparency. Risk management is not just about a specific point of requirement, but it's across the supply chain, and also the environmental and societal impacts for the resilient future. These are the changing landscape in the value chain. And what is the impact? Failure safe value chain compliance across the network is becoming impending on the organizations. And interoperability across the value chain is definitely a regulatory imperative. Okay, we don't get into the solutions now, but next slide, please. We'll come to the solutions later. The R&D capability is again another disruptive, activity which is really impending the growth of the organizations, or at least the organizations are focusing on optimized clinical supplies management. Now, gone are the days where we only focus and work on one single clinical trial or clinical supply for a trial, but organizations going across the geographies and multiple number of trials happening across the globe, and some of the supplies are common. How do we actually plan for these supplies and at a cost effective way? Because many of the times it's not just your own the molecule which you are trying to put through the clinical trial, but also very expensive comparative drugs which you're working on. So optimizing the supplies management is another imperative. The clinical trial durations are also shrinking. Earlier, gone are the days a molecule comes after 10 years. Now people are looking at this has to be within 5 to 6 years, and sometimes some of the molecules will have to get out within a year and a half, depending on the criticality of the society. And staying ahead of the competition, of course, all the organizations always try to stay ahead. Mergers and acquisitions are happening at a rapid pace, and people are also trying to sell off their some of the core competencies they are keeping with them, but something which is not critical to them, they are trying to give it off to somebody else. Now, the mergers, acquisitions, and rehaving, etc., are very, very important. But the regulatory imperative is very important, and people are looking at interoperability through GS1 standards. Are the solutions what you are using, are they capable enough of trying to comply with this requirement, GXP requirement, and also transparent, clear, complete data submissions complying to regulatory requirements in the R&D side. With multiple solutions available, we'll talk about that later. Next slide, please. The other impact which is also having the CXOs not sleeping at night is ever-changing price regulations and controls. Right, the price fixation by the government, material taken out of the markets, the stoppage of certain supply chains by the regulatory, This is really impacting the supply chain, and how dynamically we try to manage this changing environment, pricing requirement. It needs a planning right from the requirement till the last end of the supply chain, starting from the suppliers. So the entire supply chain has to be completely calibrated, recalibrated, just to make sure that our profitability is not shrunk because of price regulations. Okay? And we also need to adjust the sales channels for the pricing. Next slide, please. Again, the traceability is another big topic which is having a high regulatory impact. And some of the examples I'll quote later, but spurious drug market impact is really impacting the market, business, and also the credibility of the organizations, and how do we actually manage the traceability of the produce which is coming out of every pharma company. And product recalls, whether there is a problem from the organization because of whatever reasons in the supply chain, if you really have to recall a product from market, the deadlines, timelines, and the quality requirements and the regulatory requirements will have to be met. Do you have the traceability of the batches is another imperative. And complying to quality local country regulations. One of the examples recently, one of the large companies in India acquired another major company from US, and they are operating suddenly in 50 different countries. Now, how do you actually put in the traceability functionality across these 50 countries within a short time frame? Now, how technology is really helping you to ensure that you do not lose these markets. Okay. The next slide, please. And this is a familiar topic for you. I can't talk about this to the choir, but the batch traceability. We have been working with at least 15, 20 different companies on this specific topic. The batch traceability, and all of you have the knowledge about the Alcoa requirements, and it is becoming more and more stringent. People, the organization, the quality department, they have the traceability, but how soon they can actually reproduce this information consistently to the regulatory when actually the need arises. So the regulatory impact, in case if you are not able to meet this requirement, a regular stoppage or a potential temporary stoppage of the manufacturing lines, which impacts the profitability. You have the goods, you have the demand, but you're not able to ship the goods, loss of business, and also high pile of inventory, which has an impact on inventory carrying cost and ultimately the balance sheet. So there are solutions available within your own landscape. We're going to talk about that soon. Next slide, please. So before I get in, I would like to draw an analogy, because this was the discussion in the last 1 year, thanks to IPA and SAP and multiple other partners. I had the opportunity to talk to at least 25 to 30 different companies in various roundtables across the country. So what I want to draw our attention, next slide, please. If you look at the landscape of any organization, this is if you look at the center of the screen, you have the core ERP, standard laptop you organize on. You like to extend the functionality. You go and buy one mobile phone which not necessarily belong to the same family of products. You go and buy another slate or a pod for specific requirement. You have a keyboard because you want to have a little more flexibility, and you want a high monitor, like you want to have a data and analytics visibility. Many products are being, as the best of the breed, being bought by the organizations, pharma companies. Yes, definitely it's cost effective, and it provides a need-based features just to meet a specific requirement. But what we also seen is the disadvantage of managing multiple vendors, multiple technologies to handle, and the people within the organization will have to assimilate, especially the technology departments, IT departments will have to assimilate these various technologies. Integration issues, this is another area where we have seen the biggest challenge when it comes to a regulatory inspection. How you have the data is correct, but it could not be articulated because of the integration issues. The business rules could not be managed. Okay? So it could lead to silo implementations and technology implementation. and upgrade compatibility. So this is another scene we have seen. The next slide talks about some of the organizations which are really moving ahead with the digital transformation, are trying to be consistent. They all the products, most of the solution, unless it's really required, they're trying to invest into the single technology. The ERP is from the same vendor, CRM is from the same vendor, uh, supplier relationship management is the same vendor. Like you look at the compatibility of the products, integration becomes much more easier. And when it comes from the single vendor, a vendor upgrades a feature, it makes sure that it works across all the solutions which you are using. Of course, one of the disadvantages, especially it stops at the procurement department, is the high investment required, or the business case may not be approved because it's a high cost. But this is transforming what we have observed. If the people would like to stay ahead of the competition, stay ahead in the race for more business, profitable yet compliant, I think there are certain investments needs to be done. Next slide, please. So one of the key important matter what I would like to say is, one second, just trying to look at, it's always important to make right decisions around your solutions. So you need to squeeze it, you need to strain it, you need to harness it, what you already have. Our observation, our study, our discussions with, we not only talk about technical departments, we also talk to quality, regulatory, and we talk to the supply chain planning people within the organizations in the pharma industry. There are features available, but we are not able to harness it well. And most important is there are alternative systems. Alternative systems is not just, there is a technical system. Yesterday, one of the speakers very clearly pointed out, while we have a technology, we also have a manual documentation parallelly going on. Somebody has to give the thought leadership or quality leadership right from the top to ensure they are put in some system, you have to use it. Okay. So my message here is organizations should consider solutions and technical platforms that provide interoperability and minimal integration requirement. If the data is changing multiple systems, there is a potential for noise and there is a possibility of data getting transformed or corrupted. Okay. And at the same time, you should look at systems which are GXP compliant. We have seen some systems are extremely GXP compliant, but when you really talk about data capturing tools, yesterday there was an example of temperature gathering gadgets and weight gathering gadgets. But many of this data is just data of point of capture. It actually gets into your ERP. Are they really consistent? Are they applying the business rules? Are they really compliant with the GXP compliance, and also follow your QMS and standard operating procedures? Next slide, please. So this is the core of my topic, harnessing your ERP. I would like to introduce you to a few things, but I made a major assumption. Many or all of the Indian Pharma Alliance members are using SAP S/4HANA as an ERP, or they are in the transformation journey from their ECC. So I tried to make my pitch, my session based on that assumption. Next slide, please. Now, when it comes to the core ERP and the features available for many of the pharma companies, if you look at, I was surprised when I was reviewing 6 months back, along with sitting with SAP, there are a lot more than an ERP, an SAP ERP system with the manufacturing, warehousing, etc. There are a lot many things which are feasible by enhancing, maximizing the use of your core ERP and weaving around the solutions around the ERP. And if you look at some of the example, clinical supply management has become a very big core function. At least 5 to 6 large pharma companies are focusing on introducing an SAP tool to manage their clinical supply management across the globe. Serialization, again, global serialization programs are working. It is country specific. At the same time, organizations will have to focus on enhancing on what you have. Batch release management. And batch release management, I have a couple of slides which we'll talk about. This is an assurance for the quality person. Even before a regulatory person comes to you and then tries to look at your batch release process. So how confident you are that is feasible. Next slide, please. So click one more. Yeah. So if you look at the red box on the left side, ERP, that's what many of the organizations are really moving around, and they added multiple suites for user experience, multiple solutions for industry specific process orchestration. And now if you look at SAP as a single solution provider, we also talk about industry cloud solutions. Either they are from the SAP or they are from SAP's partners who are building on the core ERP and enhancing the specific requirement. So there is a single window system, single shopping mall where you can actually go and assemble and shop for your solutions. You don't have to go around looking for best of the breed. We have a few of the sessions topics covered in the next few slides. Next slide, please. So I focused in this session these 6 areas, and not last but the least, I'll also talk about ECG. And next slide, please. The quality management. Next. What is feasible for the core ERP, what you already have. This is a classic example, and this is one of the main focus areas when we go and talk about why not you implement a new solution. We would like to, what we hear from the quality person is we want to set right our core quality management system. The multiple features available from quality planning and the impact of the product development, quality inspections, compliant management, documentation management, analytics, and audit management. And these are the features many of the organizations haven't yet capitalized. Some of them are using, definitely, and some of the topics may appear very familiar to you. But if you look at one organization and say, are you really doing all of them together, is a big challenge. Next slide, please. So it's right from compliance, batch management, documentation management, supplier quality management, laboratory information management, and notifications and deviations, and audit. So some of the benefits what we have seen, if you can actually harness your own quality system and add on and expand by moving into the newer versions of your core ERP, you can do a lot many things by discarding many of the independent systems which you have built and integrated back into the SAP system. Is it feasible? We have evaluated. Yes, it is definitely feasible. And how fast you can do is the main question. Right now, we are actually trying to solve with the pharma companies. Next slide, please. So as I said, SAP is not only building solutions around that. There are a lot many partner companies adding. We as a 10th pin, we realized there is a lot of gap on the standard quality management implementations. And because of these gaps, despite SAP is providing S4HANA, we also are providing a few solutions on the technology provided. So we created a new solution exclusively for pharma companies. It's called 10th pin quality management evolve, TQME. This basically takes in the pain points in your implementations and try to provide with a seamless on SAP standard product, which is developed, managed, and supported by 10th pin. So this is one example. Like 10th pin, there could be multiple other vendors who would be providing this information. Okay, next. So I will skip this, the paucity of time, but a lot many features available. Next slide, please. Batch management. This is another area which is actually evoked a lot of interest. We have done sessions across Europe, US, in India, and everywhere we go, the largest attraction came from all the pharma companies for this particular topic, batch release. So the challenge is what they have. Delayed batch release, data collected but they're not able to articulate the data because the data is available in the multiple systems. It takes time to collate. High inventory carrying cost. Stock is available, could not sell. Long preparation times for audit. Human errors for data compilation. You have it, but when you really compile the data, you're not able to harness the data and show it in a uniform way. And we had one of the regulatory from FDA in one of the sessions. The comment from them, that person is very, very important. Said many a times Indian companies feel that we don't trust them. We really trust them. The missing link is they have the data. We know that they have the data, but we just want to see the flow of data, how they actually release the batch, and that's where they fumble. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks for them to assemble what they have. So we found that if you are able to put in a system which actually simplifies this and accelerates the batch release process. So some of the KPIs we measured, people who were taking the quality personnel who were taking about 4 to 5 days to release a batch, they were able to take the decision within 2 hours. Is it really a gain? And not only that, releasing the process is faster, but they're able to reduce the manual effort through a cockpit, and their reproducibility of the data anytime any auditor comes has increased. Okay, I'll go to the next slide. This is just a quick overview of how the batch release hub from SAP. Just through on the top, you see the cockpit with a single view. You can actually collect your information across all your systems, which help you in collecting the data, whether it is CTM, LINS, DMS, QMS, MES. So the possibility to collect the information and give a single view to the release process to the quality personnel. Next slide, please. So we talked a lot on the serialization. One of the main reasons is the counterfeiting, the local country regulations, so that the counterfeit the producers are not going, and it's not only marketing approval is available or not for the manufacturer or a large distributor bringing it from import businesses. So this is becoming a more and more important feature for serialization, track and trace. And we have seen the exchanging of the serialized data within the supply chain, complex supply chain, especially when you are manufacturing in one place and distributing to another location, assembling it, the entire final packaging becomes much more easier. How actually you can actually produce the retraceability of the entire product through the batches through a serialization requirement. So the serialization track and trace solutions from SAP also closely linked and to the batch release process, so that the traceability becomes much more faster and effective. Next slide, please. Yeah, simple diagram about this ATTP system collecting information from multiple, either it is your own old ECC system or S4HANA system. Some of the organizations, large distribution networks, they're using enterprise warehouse management solutions. They have multiple packaging lines, government systems, a single view that it really helps for the organization to improve their traceability. Next slide, please. So I will skip this one, this data. I'm definitely sure that IPA is going to send this information deck to all the participants, but this gives you a view of what the possibilities. The next is the calibrating the supply chain. We talked about the critical material supply is impacted, long lead times, APS shortage, and especially when you're trying to look at the temperature management of many of the products crossing across the supply chain is becoming more and more challenging, and the manufacturing capacities will have to be shrunk and expanded and needs to be distributed. Manufacturing has to be implemented, and also human risk of balancing the labor shortages and safety of employees. These are some of the challenges what we have seen in the supply chain. And how do you actually do dynamically the moment there is a slight fluctuation for the demand? Yesterday we have seen why the drugs are not reaching. The drugs are available, not reaching. There is a sudden supply shortage in one market, there is excess inventory in another market. So all of them can be addressed by doing an integrated business planning for the entire supply chain. Generally, we have the MRP, ERP we have been doing and then trying to explore the moment sales order comes, and then we go into our production order and then create purchasing requisitions. But it just not stops here. There is a possibility for you to go and extend and receive the signals across the supply chain for you to plan. Next slide, please. So intelligent clinical supply management, we talked about the shrinking timelines for clinical trials, the user experience sites and the patients are asking for better user experience, drug development life cycles are really pacing up, and tighter interaction is required with the number of parties involved in a clinical trial are multiple, and all of them will need to have a same visibility of the inventory. In one of these studies where I was invited to do an assessment, the site management is not able to produce the site inventory report to the sponsor, and they used to take about 3 to 4 weeks through a CRO. I think that's no longer acceptable for manufacturing. So we have a fantastic solution within SAP Stable for the clinical supply management, and they also integrated the solutions with one of the partners IRT solutions, which is proven and experimented and is being used across the industry. So these are some of the solutions. I'll give a next slide. I'll give you a view of how this ICSM is going to work. Very simple. In ICSM, we can do the study master, manufacturing, planning and forecasting and distribution. It sits on top of your core ERP and ensures that you not only do planning for your commercials, you can also do planning and forecasting for your clinical supplies. And some of the solutions which are there on the left hand side, if you look at the partner products are integrated and it can work with any one of the systems what you already have in your company. Next slide, please. So I'll skip this part, but yesterday we talked about, I'll go to the next slide. This is more descriptive. The next slide, please. Yeah. So we're talking about predictive maintenance and surveys, and is this really something which you can do it? Yes, you can do it. Is machine language actually in the machine language is already there in the SAP suite, in the ERP, co-ERP, and the peripheral solutions? Definitely yes. So I think the health record, if you look at on the right hand side, you can really predict and do an assessment of your workforce required for the maintenance. So preventive and predictive maintenance capabilities are extremely well articulated in the solutions. I think a few slides I see. Next slide, please, very quickly. Yeah, this is one of the last topics I would like to talk about. This is about, we talked about the environment, sustainability, and governance, ESG. And many a times people are looking at one of the studies, what we indicated, we have done through one of the specialists in this area. Many of the components which are required for ESG reporting are available in some way or other. It's just that they are not able to put these pieces together. It's still not imposed and become a kind of a diktat yet, but it is becoming more of a social responsibility for the organization to comply soon. So there are solutions available in your own core ERP and peripheral solutions around SAP for you to really look at environmental sustenance and governance. Next slide, I think last two slides, my knowledge. So these are some of the core areas in the ESG which you can implement. Next slide, please. Yeah, the single slide tells you that SAP recently introduced a business technology platform which actually integrates your SAP, non-SAP systems. Development becomes easier. All the solutions which are coming off an SAP stable on top of S4HANA are coming through this technology platform. So many organizations who would like to really push through their digital transformation, many of them are actually really considering this, and it's a kind of a way forward and path breaking. Next slide, please. Yeah, some of the solutions which can come from 10th pin, not just like a sales pitch, but let's go to the next slide. Yes, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to take them. I hope I'm able to complete.
Your session particularly was very interesting. A lot of capabilities are not being of SAP are not being used unless you guide them to go to that the quality management systems as well as the complete supply chain. You can go through it and having the right type of product going to reaching to the patient. I think these all things are very good, and with this understanding, we can go ahead. What can be done on this? There were two questions from the people. One was related to the sustainability. First question, he wrote in the first 15 minutes question saying, what is the relation between SAP and sustainability? Which probably you explained in the last slide, probably last two slides. Very clear. Second thing, he was talking about blockchain technology. We were hearing a lot about it for last. What is the current status? Have we implemented, or is it just still on the paper?
No, I'm not an expert on blockchain, though I dealt with it. There are a lot many startup companies which came in. Now, if you look at blockchain as a word, in my opinion, has remained on paper for some time. It was implemented, especially in some of the industries in retail and also in banking sector that was used. In a way, the fundamental concepts are already incorporated in, especially if you look at the clinical trial solutions, a few elements of timestamp, multiple signatures, and protection of the data sources, distributed databases, distributed data, ownership of the data, these fundamental concepts. Now, slowly I see the generative AI is taking over that particular element of the need, and it's ensuring that the features are incorporated. And the blockchain as a concept, how fundamental it is, because our system usage, especially in large manufacturing organization, is not as widely distributed. It's still a business to business and many small businesses, and it is not yet gone into business to consumer. Now, if you're going to CGTO, cell and gene therapy orchestration, where personalized medicine elements are coming in, probably we've seen a rapid part of it. Is it incorporated and encoded into SAP technologies? I know for yes. I can get an expert to talk about how blockchain is implemented in these solutions.
There was one question related to the, and it is a very simple question. Why 10th fin? From where this name has come?
Okay, so it's a very interesting question. A 10th pin has a legacy of more than 20 years in the industry. They are the first company in Germany, which was formed, Switzerland, which was formed, working with the large giants out of the Basel area, Novartis and Roche. And they when they conceptualize, they are all, many of our partners and consultants, advisors are from large technology companies. And when they realize there is a need for us to look at, focus on the clinical supplies, which is often forgotten. And interesting story behind that is, generally they always used to be 9 pins in the bowling game. So when they're taken it to US and US government, because they thought it's gambling, and they stopped it. So there is a one disruptor who came and added the 10th pin and revolutionized the 10 pin bowling game. So he said, like, we are the disruptors. So if you go to any large company, there is always a presence of 10th pin as an advisory or a monitoring or technology consulting in the organization.
Thank you.
We work with close to 50 top pharma companies across the world.
Thank you. Very interesting. I think, and do you have in India many companies adopting to the QMS through SAP? Because all of us have been documentum, these, that, something changed.
So we have done a very thorough analysis along with SAP solution advisors recently, about 6 months back. The entire QMS functionality can be implemented through S4 HANA. and a few added features. Many a times, because lack of time or lack of using the right consultants, many a times we go to pocketed specialized solutions. This resulted into lot many islands and silos. I've seen one of the QMS, one example given, when we started digging deep into one of the companies, they said we have about 45, 50 different small development done by our consulting partner. Never told us that these all things can be addressed through SAP's quality management system. That sums it all.
Okay, that's good. Capability, and we can go ahead with the so many things once we listen to it. I think I will hand over back to Niranjana.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for the opportunity.